Okay, welcome everyone. Over the last 4 weeks, we've spoken about the importance and the power of positive meditation, becoming aware of our soul and the soul of the entire universe, which enables us to find meaning and purpose in every experience that we have. We've spoken about the divine providence, which can fill our lives with joy and purpose. We spoke about, last week, we focused on living in the moment, the value of every single minute, the fact that God creates the world at every single moment, as we say in the prayers, that God is continuously creating the world. And therefore, if we recognize that every moment is a new creation, then we see every moment as a valuable moment and a moment of opportunity. It was a very powerful class last week. In this lesson, we're going to try to bring all the meditations of the previous lessons, especially last week's lesson, into more of a practical way. How do we actually bring these ideas into something that we could practice? Not only those moments of the day that we're actually focused on meditation. You see, when we're sitting focused on meditation, we could think about the importance of every moment and the value of every moment and the divine in every moment, in every experience in life. But what happens the rest of the time? How do we infuse every other moment of our day, every mundane experience with holiness? And ultimately change the way we behave, change the way we deal with life. So we're going to use the ideas that we've learned in the previous lessons. Tonight's lesson, I should say, it's extremely rich, but at the same time, perhaps a little lighter than the previous lessons. In order to appreciate how to bring these ideas into our everyday mundane life, what we're going to do is we're going to focus tonight on 3 areas of our life that are extremely mundane. The first area is eating, which not only will we talk about eating, but we'll even practice eating. Eating with mindfulness. Not just eating because there's something on the table or because we're a little hungry, but we're going to practice eating with mindfulness, which is why I have some fruit on the table. Sorry for those of you who are here virtually. I can give you some virtual fruit. Or you could find a piece of fruit that you have in your home, so you could join us in this meditation. The next meditation that we're going to do tonight, I hope we won't actually practice it during class, and that's a meditation for sleeping. And that's my job, to keep you up. So I'll do the best I can. But if you do sleep, please sleep after we have meditation number 2 about sleeping, so that the sleeping in class is purposeful. As a kid, I would often fall asleep during class. And my mother would tell me, why don't you, and then at home, of course, at night, I would have a hard time sleeping. And my mother would tell me to record the teacher. This way I could sleep at night. When I listened to the teacher, the recording, And then during the day, I won't be tired and I can listen to the teacher live. But I could tape the teacher and then just listen to the teacher when I want. Why do I have to listen in class? It's like the guy who comes into to the synagogue. He missed Kol Nidre or something. So the rabbi says, "What happens?" He says, "There was a big game. You know, I had to stay home, watch it on television. It was an important game." The rabbi says, "Well, you could have at least recorded it." He says, "Oh, I didn't know you could record the Kol Nidre." Now, the third category, the third meditation that we're going to do tonight is working. So if you're not eating and you're not sleeping, well, the rabbi at least is working. So tonight, we'll try to meditate a little on eating. Tonight, before you go to sleep, you could take the meditation and do that before you go to sleep. And tomorrow, when you go to work, or tonight, if you have some work, you could also take this meditation. So again, the idea is that we're going to take 3 ideas, 3 areas of our life, and we're going to see how we can transform them into more meaningful, more purposeful activities, so that we could eat a different kind of eating. We could sleep, and our sleep could be different, and our work, even the challenging moments at work. And work doesn't necessarily mean those who have a job. Not everybody has a job. Some of you are retired. But it means in any activities that you have in life, you should be able to do them with meaning and find purpose and joy at every moment, even when there are challenges and difficulties. So I think in that way, we could all relate to the importance of spending time meditating on work. So this week I brought a little show and tell, and I have to ask you a question. In my hand, now I have to see if you could tell what let me go back down here. In my hand, I have a little container. Could you tell what is in this container? I'll give you a hint. I asked one of my kids to fill up this container, and they should go outside and do it.
Yeah.
So what is it? It's dirt. That is correct. Can you tell me how much is this dirt worth? So Elaine says garnished, but I want to tell you something. I want to tell you something. I always thought that dirt is worth nothing until they dug up the dirt for the foundation of the house. And I found out that it's actually very expensive. The only thing is, they're not going to pay for it. You have to pay to get rid of it. So it's a little bit funny. It's expensive. It's expensive to get rid of. So yeah, you may not be able to sell this for anything, but you might have to pay to give it to someone. The truth is that if someone else needs dirt, people pay for dirt. A lot of times that's how people get rid of it. In fact, that's one of the things that we tried to do, was to see if someone would take the dirt. If someone is building, they might need dirt. So people do need dirt at times. So here we have a little container of dirt. So maybe it's worth, if this was dirt from Spain, right? And I brought it back as a souvenir, so maybe you'll say it's worth $5. I might even have bought it. By the way, if you find a tourist, you tell them this is American soil, right? It's very valuable. So take it home with you. Okay, so it's worth $1, let's say. I'll put a nice sticker on, right? It's soil from George Washington's house in Tappan, New York. That's no one knows if it is or it isn't. That's what happens with most of the soil you buy in places. So here we have some soil worth $1. Now, here's the key. If I open up the soil, and let's see if I could do this without making a mess. Okay. It's good to have a vacuum cleaner here. Okay. Let's see if, let me bend the screen down over here, and those who are listening to the recording will not be able to see this. Yeah. Okay. Let's see what happened. I told Devorah I'll be able to clean this afterwards. You see what was in the soil? So for a moment, we thought that the soil was worth nothing. But then we dug into the soil and we found out that beneath the soil is something that's worth a significant amount of money. That's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to see how every little bit of food that we eat, every time we go to sleep, and every time we go to work or do any activity in our lives, it is, on the surface, it may look insignificant, but deep down, there's tremendous purpose and meaning. So, if I had to give a speech, this would be the end of the speech. I accomplished what I need to. But being that this is a class, we're going to go deeper into it and see with our meditations how we could actually take this idea home in these three areas. So, okay. So what is the real story behind the mundane? We're going to look beneath the surface. We're going to tap into the divine energy that is found beneath the surface and find meaning in our lives. Okay. How do we achieve this? So let's go. We're going to go to text number 1. Last week we spoke about, just as an introduction to text number 1, although it's a very short text, which is spotlighted by text number 2. 1b. We're going to spotlight just a few words in this text from Proverbs. Last week we spoke about how time is a creation and valuable, and there's godly energy within time. And this week we're going to focus with this text in the fact that there is godly energy in everything that exists in this world. Now we've sort of mentioned this idea over the previous weeks, but let's see the source for it. Text number 1a. Know God in all your ways, and he will direct your path. So know God in all your ways, meaning in everything that you do, even the mundane. That's what it says. Bar Kapara taught, text 1b, which is a brief passage upon which all fundamental principles of Torah are dependent. And he quotes this verse: know God in all your ways, and he will direct your path. So this is a very powerful verse, very short verse, but this verse teaches us that God can be found in everything, that there's godly energy. This is the source, the idea of tikkun olam, which everyone is familiar with, and the idea is to bring out, to reveal the godly energy that exists within every single part of creation. So look around the room. If you see a drink or some food, focus on the food and think about the divine energy that's within it. Or if you don't have any drink or food on your table or in close proximity, focus on anything in your room: a chair, a table, a carpet, the floor, the ceiling. And just imagine and recognize that there's a godly energy, and our job is to be able to reveal it. So we're not only finding God in spirituality and in mitzvot or religion, but every aspect of our lives. And we accomplish this through deep meditation. You see, what's interesting is, if I do a mitzvah, take for example, the mitzvah of shaking the lulav. And I shook the lulav without any meditation whatsoever. It's still a spiritual endeavor. I have no idea what I'm doing. The rabbi gave me, I was in a rush. He couldn't explain it to me. I just took the lulav and etrog. I made a blessing. I shook it, but I didn't take a moment to think about what I'm doing. It's a unique, a powerful spiritual moment because I'm doing a mitzvah. And so it's obvious within a mitzvah, there's spiritual energy. But when it comes to a mundane activity, in order to elevate, in order to express and experience the divine energy in that activity, you actually have to be mindful. You actually have to focus. So the Rambam spells this out. We're going to read text number 2. Page 150 for those of you who have the textbook, which I think is everyone. And the Rambam writes as follows. By the way, I just want to take a moment. I should have done this at the beginning of class, but it's not too late. And that every mitzvah that we do, every moment of Torah study and mitzvah that we do could be an opportunity for us to pray and bring merit to all those who are in an extremely difficult and challenging place and time in Ukraine, and all those who were there or have family there. So we dedicate our Torah study tonight to their merit, that this Torah study that we are doing tonight should bring them safety, and we should have good news. Of course, this is all on our minds, and definitely takes a lot of effort and focus to prepare a class and to give a class while we have so much on our minds. So let's go to text number 2 and read it. We should direct our hearts and the totality of our behavior to one goal: becoming aware of God. Blessed be He. The way we rest, rise, and converse should all be directed to this end. Again, text number 2, and this is from Maimonides' Mishnah Torah. For example, when involved in business dealings or while working for a wage, we should not think solely of amassing wealth. Rather, we should engage in such activity for the sake of being in a position to obtain that which our body needs: food, drink, shelter, and a spouse. Then, when we eat, drink, or engage in intimate relations, we should not intend to do these things solely for pleasure, to the point that we eat and drink only that which is sweet and tasty, and we engage in intimacy for pleasure. Rather, we should focus our minds while eating and drinking on the exclusive benefit of maintaining a full, healthy body. Therefore, we should not eat whatever the palate desires, which would put us on par with animals, but rather we should select foods that are beneficial for the body, whether they are bitter or sweet. Okay? Take a little drink.
Yeah.
And we should avoid substances that are harmful to the body, even if they taste delicious. So there's the Rambam giving us the foundation. And of course, what we're going to do is focus on three, as I said, focus on 3 things: changing our everyday routine from shallow to mindful in 3 areas of our lives: eating, sleeping, and working. So of course, eating, is the first thing on our list. So we will begin with eating. So there's an exercise on page 152. I think it's a good exercise to, even if you don't jot something down, but think about it. You want to jot down your preferred food for each of the following: breakfast, dinner, or dinner date, which might be different than dinner, snack, a comfort food, and dessert. What is your preferred food for each of these situations or meals? And then once you finish writing those down or thinking about those, so you're now stuck on a deserted island without a clue as to when you might be rescued. Which food would you want to have with you? From all the foods that you put down, on which food is the one food that you would want to have with you when you have nothing else and you don't know when you're going to be rescued? The point of this exercise, of course, it's possible that since that we're not all around the table together, so it's going to be hard for everybody to share. But Elaine, did you finish the exercise yet? Was the one thing that you want to have with you, was that on your original list?
Well, I just thought of what I would take from the list I made. You know what I mean?
But if you didn't have that list, would it be the same? Would there be something on that list, or would it be something else?
Probably I wouldn't have thought of what I wrote down.
So good, and that's the point. So Elaine says that she probably would not have thought about. She did choose one item, but that probably would not have been her choice had she not seen this list. The point is that much of what we eat is not for our survival. Much of what we eat is for indulgence. We know that we need to eat to survive. I think we all know that, right? We know we need to eat to survive. We're mature. We know that. However, most of the time, that's not what's going through our mind, especially when we're eating ice cream, especially when we're eating steak, and even when we're eating a snack bar. We're not thinking that we need to survive and therefore we need to eat. So without meditation, we eat because we can. We're not paying attention. We eat because we can eat. So my choice is, what am I going to eat for dinner? Let me get something nice, right? Let me get something tasty. Let me get me some delicious. What are my choices? I go to the supermarket and I'm going to find something that I can enjoy. So the focus is not on what I could survive with or what I need to eat, but rather, what can I enjoy? What is a tasty food that I can enjoy? When we meditate, when we are mindful, now we eat. Why? Because, if I start to think why I need to eat, I eat because I need to survive. And of course, if I'm eating because I need to survive, then I make healthier choices. So I think it's important to take a moment just to make this personal. When I found out, Baruch Hashem, it's under control, and I don't need to take any medications anymore, and so on. It's getting better. But good evening. When I found out that I had after when I found out I have diabetes, thank you, and I think about it every day. When I found out I had diabetes and I have to change my diet, So you realize that the food that you eat is going to really, really affect your health. You're mindful every time you eat. Every single food in over the last year that I've eaten, I've thought about how this is going to affect my health. It's a crazy thing because I could have given this class a year ago, and I would have told you that we have to be mindful, and but I hadn't experienced it. Even though with certain foods I had made choices that I don't eat certain things, and I was on a diet or very focused, but it wasn't about my health. It was about being healthier, but I wasn't conscious every time I ate and deliberate. Now I'm very mindful when I eat. Okay, so that's one way. That's being mindful to bring it so that I'm focused, I'm mindful, and I'm eating and I'm making healthy choices. That's one level, very basic level of being mindful when I eat. That I know I'm eating because I have to survive. But there is an even deeper level, and that's what we're here for tonight. To give the food even more meaning than even just recognizing that there's purpose to eating. That I'm eating this food to be able to survive, there's even more than that. That there's meaning, which is the reason why we have the concept of making brachot, making blessings before we eat. What's the purpose of making a blessing before we eat? The purpose is to pause, to stop, to focus. And to transform the moment of eating into a godly moment and a moment of gratitude. But we could take this even a step further. More than just a moment of gratitude. How do we really recognize, if I take this water, I'm not going to be able to have such a intense meditation. But if I take the muffin that's on the table, that I'm not going to eat, but I'm going to meditate on. I can't eat the muffin, at least let me meditate on it, right? Right? You can't have the cake and eat it. That's something I live with. It's a whole different phrase. So if I look at the muffin and you start to go through the journey that it took to be able to get to this table. It took a farmer. Then it took someone else to carry it. But actually before the farmer, there was a planting, well, from the farmer, but before the farmer cut it. There was planting, there's raining, there's weather is involved. There's so many little details that I don't need to go through every single detail, but we could do that when we're meditating on the food that we're about to eat, to think of the process of how it got to our table. And to marvel at the God who engineered it all and gave wisdom to the human to be able to take this process and create the food and make it a reality so that it could sit on my table right here and we could use it to either feed those who come to class or sometimes entice those to come to class. Not in today's age. Not to our group. But the idea is that there was a long process, even the person going to buy it, picking it up. These ones are being single packaged. So there's so much been involved. And that was all orchestrated by God, who gave the wisdom for that to happen. Now, one interesting thing that we find, so when we're mindful, we recognize where our food really comes from. And we realized that God assisted and gave wisdom to so many to provide this food for us. And we make a blessing, we focus on the spiritual energy. Now, one of the interesting things about the spiritual energy, there's more to it than besides just the fact that God created it and gave it to us. We'll get into the spiritual energy of it and bring the Kabbalah before we go into our meditation. But there's something very interesting, which we see in text number 3, and that is on page 153. One of the things that I was taught when I was very little by my parents was that every time you eat something or drink something, you hold it in your right hand. Unless you're a lefty, then you can hold it in your left hand. You hold it in your right hand. Right has great importance. We spoke about it a little bit, that right represents, it's a little bit of a Kabbalah class. I think we mentioned it one of the previous weeks. I've given other classes where I've mentioned it recently, but I believe we mentioned it before, that you have chesed and gevura, kindness and discipline, and kindness is on the right, discipline is on the left. And so when we make a bracha, a lot of things that we do, we practice with our right hand. When we get dressed, we practice it with our right hand. There's a lot of things that we do with our right hand. You see, putting on our tefillin, one of the reasons is the idea is that we should put it on our left arm. But there's another element of putting on tefillin with the left arm. The idea is that you should be able to wrap it with your right arm. Meaning, if you were putting it on your right arm, you wouldn't be able to do it with your right arm. So by putting it on your left, you're actually able to put the tefillin on with the right arm. So right is chesed, is kindness. And when we do mitzvot and we eat and we do things, activities in our life, the idea is to bring the kindness, the chesed, into this world. Of course, if someone's a left-handed person, that means that the strength of the kindness is flowing through the left side of their body, and therefore they are supposed to hold it with their left hand. So spiritually, it's the energy comes through their left. So they'll give charity with their left hand. So every mitzvah is done always with our right hand. When I blow the shofar from Rosh Hashanah, I actually hold the shofar on the right side of my mouth, the right side of my mouth, and I'm holding it with my right hand. Now sometimes I'll also hold it with my left hand, so I create the proper sound and I have stability and so on. But the idea is to hold it with our right hand. In fact, the smallest size of a shofar is that you should be able to hold it in your hand. Okay, and you should be able to see it from either side. So the smallest shofar you can only hold with one hand. But the idea is the right hand, with the exception of making a bracha on bread, especially when you make a bracha on bread. The ideal way to make a bracha on bread is on a full loaf, which we practice on Shabbos. Anytime you have a full loaf, the idea is that one should make a blessing on the full loaf and then cut it. If it's already sliced, then you just hold the bread. When you make a bracha on bread, then you're supposed to hold the bread with both hands rather than with your right hand. It's the exception. What's the reason for it? So text number 3 explains. Before reciting the blessing of a bread, put both your hands on the bread, for your 10 fingers reflect the 10 mitzvot associated with bread making. That there are 10 mitzvahs. They are to avoid plowing with 2 species of animals together, to avoid growing forbidden mixtures of plants, species which are called kalayim, to leave leket, chikha, and peah, 3 distinct forms of overlooked harvest for the poor to collect, to bring the first fruit, bikurim, to Jerusalem, which was done for Shavuot, to donate the truma, the tithe, to the Kohen, to observe the rites of the Maisa Rishon and Maisa Sheni tithes, and to donate a portion of dough, challah, to a Kohen. So our class doesn't give us time to go through all of these 10, but the idea is that we're holding it with our 10 fingers to meditate, to stop and focus, to recognize what's involved from a spiritual level, what's involved in the making of the challah, but also the mitzvot that are involved in the challah. Kabbalah teaches us, and this is where we come to the spiritual energy of eating, the spiritual idea of eating, that just like we know scientifically that food gives us nutrients and energy, so too, Kabbalah teaches us that food also gives energy for the soul. Many people think that spiritual endeavors are what gives food. If we study Torah, we do mitzvot, that's what feeds the soul. And the physical aspects of our life, eating and drinking and exercising and sleeping and working, that's what's going to give us energy for our body. The truth is, and this is what we are going to meditate on and accomplish tonight, is to recognize that not only our spiritual activities, but even our mundane physical activities, when we eat, when we drink, when we sleep, when we exercise, when we work, of course, we're only focusing on 3 of them, but every mundane activity actually has the ability to feed and give energy, not only to our body, but also create a healthy soul. And the truth is that this is only the case with kosher food, which is why God tells us that we should eat kosher food. It's not because God wants to give us a hard time. A lot of times kids feel that teachers are doing certain things because they just want to have control. And sometimes that's the truth. A lot of times parents, teachers create rules so that they have control over the kid, instead of creating rules and procedures so that the child is a successful child. And being that we experience as a child, this is my own thoughts, being that we experience as a child a lot of times that kind of attitude of someone being in control, when we see a mitzvah, an opportunity to do a mitzvah and something that the Torah tells us, we feel, oh, it's another thing that Judaism wants to be in control of our life. And so they limit us by only eating certain things. Even if it's not something that we're consciously thinking, subconsciously, it's affecting the way we respond to the laws of kosher. It's difficult. It's too much. It's too stressful. But the opposite is true. God gave us kosher food because God realized, and gives us the laws of kosher food, because God realizes that for us to be able to tap in and get energy, spiritual energy, from the food, the only way to release the spiritual energy and to feed our soul with that food is by eating kosher food. Food that's not kosher, very possible that it will create, that it could be very nutritious on a physical level. It's true. We know it because people who aren't Jewish are eating non-kosher food, and they're very healthy. And technically, it would be the same for someone who is Jewish. And we see people who are Jewish who unfortunately are not keeping a kosher diet, and the reality is they're healthy. But spiritually, they're not able to tap in to the spiritual energy, even though everything we said, right? We've spoken last week, we say everything in this world has spiritual energy, but we can't uncover, just like I had that little container of dirt, which I was able to uncover and find the ring inside of it. When we eat kosher food, we're able to uncover that spiritual energy within. That is not something we could do when we eat something that is not kosher. And that's the purpose of making a blessing. Making a blessing is not only recognizing that this came from God and the power, that the ability that God gave for us to have this food, but it's also to take a moment, to pause, and to recognize that within this food, there is a godly energy that could benefit me in my life, could benefit my soul. Text number 4a. It's on page 154. I think I might have to skip some of the text, but I'm going to read this one. Text number 4b, I think we're going to have to skip. It's quite long. Okay. When God declared, let the earth give forth living souls, or let the earth produce vegetation and fruit trees, those very words created everything. And those same utterances continue to function as the inner life of that which was created through them. And actually, as we learned last week, every moment, these are being created from new, right? When we take a fruit or any food and recite a blessing over it with proper intent, articulating the words, blessed are you, God, mentioning God's sacred name, the spiritual energy responsible for bringing that fruit into existence is activated. This is powerful. This occurs because everything was created through the divine name. And our articulation of God's name in the blessing awakens the divine energy that flows from God's name within the fruit. So we're not just saying a blessing just to say a blessing because we're feeling thankful. We're actually saying a blessing because when we say the blessing, we say God's name in the blessing, we're actually awakening the divine energy. Then the awakened energy within the fruit provides spiritual sustenance for our own soul. This can only work with kosher food, substances that God himself directed us to sublimate from mundane to divine. This is the deeper significance of the verse. Know that a person does not live by bread alone, but rather by whatever comes forth from the mouth of God does a person live. Which means it is not the physical bread alone that supports life. Rather, when we utter God's name in a blessing and activate the spiritual energy, that is what gives life to a person, or more precisely, to the soul that animates us. The story is told about the Baal Shem Tov. We all like stories. Stories told about the Baal Shem Tov was in a town. The name of the town was Kolomaya, somewhere in Poland. Not familiar exactly with where it is. And he saw that there was a spiritual light in this town. And he went around the town, it was Friday night, and he went around the town searching for this spiritual light. Where can I find the spiritual light? I guess he was warmed. You know, sometimes you sense something. So he was sensing this spiritual energy, the spiritual light. And he found a home. And he sees this home. He says, this is the house. What's going on in this house? Knocks on the door, and there's a man and his wife. Beautiful set table, ready for Shabbos. And the husband is dancing. So he asks, what are you dancing about? So the man said, every time before I start to eat, before I have my meal, what I do is I try to absorb the spiritual essence within the food, within the mundane, within whatever I'm trying to eat. And that brings me so much joy that I start to dance. And the Baal Shem Tov recognized that this brought such light, such meaning into this world. The Baal Shem Tov was able to sense it. But it's something that our soul is able to get energy from this light, from this spiritual spark that was within the food. And so God's speech creates the world. And now there's a spark from that speech in every part of the world. And when I say a blessing, I'm going to reveal that spiritual energy. Which is actually the reason, very interesting, that Kabbalah tells us why we crave food. When you're sitting in front of a cookie, and something tells you, I want to eat that cookie, it's not just your mind and your heart, but it's actually a godly spark in that cookie that's sending a message to you, please redeem me. That's really what's going on. Otherwise, it makes no sense. You just had dinner, And now you come and you see a plate of dessert and you see a chocolate and suddenly I want to eat it. You ate everything. In fact, you already had dessert and now you see dessert again and you want to eat it again. It doesn't make any sense. It only makes sense if you realize that it's the piece of chocolate, that piece of dessert that's telling me eat me, because reveal that spiritual energy. The only question that I have is, does that happen also when you see an unkosher piece of chocolate?
Or when you see a sugar snap pea, what I mean, that you may like, but it doesn't call to you like chocolate. Doesn't that have the divine spark also?
True. But then if you want to eat it, something's telling you to eat it. And if it's not kosher, maybe it's also telling you, please reveal, except that he doesn't know that I can't. But it still wants me to. So it sends me that message. There are messages. There's communication. Today we could understand that there's different energies and things in the world that create feelings and emotions. And sometimes we just don't know, why am I feeling this way? Because there's something in the air that's creating the way we feel. And so there are spiritual energies in this world. There's spiritual energies in the food that's making me want to eat. So this is very powerful. So yeah, you could enjoy your food. And it's great to enjoy your food and to recognize the beauty of your food. But we also have the ability to have the right intentions. Not only, meaning I can still enjoy the food, but not only am I going to enjoy the food, I can recognize that this food is actually something that's giving my soul energy, and I'm elevating the sparks, the godly spark that's trapped within that food. It's a very powerful concept. So, I'm gonna have to skip you. Please read text, the text that I'm skipping. I'm gonna skip because I want to go into also the other areas, sleep and work. So I'm going to skip this next several, except the second part of text number 5 is important, and which is on page 159, where the Alter Rebbe tells us that if you eat glutinously simply for corporeal pleasure, the energy you derive from that food or beverage is temporarily dragged down into the clutches of negative energy that obstruct God. So if I'm only eating for pleasure, then I'm actually internalizing physically this energy, or spiritually this energy, and I'm actually concealing it even more than it was concealed while it was in the food. Until later, if it's kosher food, later I could then say, oh wow, I ate kosher food, and I'm going to use the energy for something positive. I can then later elevate it. But at the time, I ate it only because it was good looking chocolate, and I never took a moment to focus on the godly energy it's within. At that moment, I'm actually concealing the godly energy and dragging it down even more than it was before. So now that we did this, spoken about the godly energy that's in food, we will go to one of Rabbi Dr. Label Wolf's meditations. But I want to do it and make it a little more meaningful. And so, can I give you some pineapple?
Sure.
Can I give you some pineapple? The bracha that we're going to make afterwards together is ha'adama. So, yeah, you want to just take it, then I don't have to touch the fruit. And I give one to you too. And if it's good, you could take the second one. And if the spiritual energy is talking to you, don't eat it yet. After the meditation, you want to really meditate. Then we're going to make the bracha after the meditation, and then we'll eat it. The idea is to meditate. You're going to make a bracha, but you're going to meditate first, because the meditation is more than a minute. So you will have to make the bracha right after. Okay. If you have some fruit. If you have we're going to make a hadama on this after. If you have any other fruits, you make a bracha ha'etz. So use that during this meditation. And now we're going to go to the meditation.
We don't dichotomize between the holy and the secular. In other words, everything has meaning. Everything is valuable. Everything is precious. Even the most mundane aspects of life contain deep spiritual meaning, and we relate to that in a very profound way. Even eating. You have been given a raisin, just hold it in your hand and I'll tell you what to do with it. So gently close your eyes and just become aware of your 5 senses. Become aware of what your eyes see at the back of your eyelids. Become aware of what you can hear in the room, even sounds within you. Become aware of the feel of the raisin, its texture. Anticipate the taste of the raisin once you begin to eat it. And become aware of any fragrance around you. I would like you to take the raisin and adopt a particular kavanah, focused intention. And the focused intention is that you are going to borrow the soul energy of that raisin and allow it to become part of your own energy system. You'll do that by eating it. To adopt a focused kavanah, we prepare ourselves by saying a bracha. A bracha, commonly translated as blessing, means a way of drawing down a channel for the soul spark within the raisin to become elevated through. Say it with me or just respond, Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam borei pri ha'etz. And begin chewing. And as you chew the raisin slowly, many times, become aware of the different textures that you encounter. And as the saliva mixes with the skin of the raisin, with the body of the raisin, it changes even more. Become aware of the sweetness of its taste. All these aspects that are the product of the spark soul of that raisin. Sweetness produces uplift of emotions. That is the soul spark within. Listen to your teeth chewing the raisin, thereby making it much more amenable to digestion. All the wondrous ways that Hashem created the world, all just for elevating the soul spark in the seemingly mundane and ordinary. Be prepared now to swallow the remains of the raisin. And as you do, sense how it becomes one within you. Its vitamins and goodness being extracted through the bloodstream into the needs of the body, and the soul spark within being released to a much higher spiritual state because of your bracha. Everything we do in life can be elevated and become much more meaningful if we understand the spiritual dynamics. Soul sparks exist in everything. When we do the right thing, we free the soul spark from its prison, channeling it to its higher source, and we become elevated in the process.
Now, being that we don't have our eights, we're making a different bracha. We could do the same with ours. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, parei peri ha'adama. It's a different food, different experience. Okay, let's get our students back on the screen. Okay. It's time to focus on sleeping. Not to sleep, but to focus on the purpose of sleeping, which generally, when we go to sleep, we sleep because we need to rest. We had a long day. We're tired. And so, what do I have to do? I have to go to sleep so I can rest up. But we're going to change the focus, because when we're mindful, we're not sleeping to rest. Rather, we're sleeping to recharge, which means, in other words, we're going to sleep. This is not a good meditation if you're having a hard time falling asleep at night. Don't use this meditation, because the purpose of this meditation is not to fall asleep. It's not about having quiet and getting yourself into a relaxing position so that you can sleep, but rather appreciating why you sleep. And that we sleep to be able to wake up. We sleep to wake up recharged. So that's simply being mindful. This is not a spiritual idea. Simply, if you're mindful, some people, at the end of a long day, I got to go to sleep, I'm tired. The other option is, I got to go to sleep. If you're mindful, you got to go to sleep. Why? Because you want to wake up and you got more to do, right? I got to get some rest so I can get up. So the question is, and this is brought on page 162, Imagine if you had a pill, that if you took this pill, you would not have to sleep for the next 6 months. So, would you take it? Imagine you're not going to be tired for 6 months. So most people might answer, yeah. If I could keep going, I've got so much to accomplish. Imagine how many books I could read, how much I could learn, how much goodness I could accomplish in this world, what a difference I could make if I could be up around the clock. Imagine if they came up with a pill that it doesn't affect you. If they're working on it, they haven't told me about it yet. But, the simple reason why we go to sleep is not because we're tired, but because we want to have a fresh start. We want to be able to have a fresh start. And if I took a pill that could keep me up for 6 months, my life would become such a routine. It would become so, it would never have a break. Come difficult. What happens in the day that I'm really, really stressed out? What's going to happen the day that I'm really stressed out? So usually, what do you say if you're stressed out? Listen, what are you stressed out about? Obviously, there's something that's stressing you out. Someone bothered you, or perhaps something happened in your life that day. So what do? You go to sleep, right? And you wake up refreshed with a different attitude, a little calmer, able now to deal with the challenge. After 2 days, the challenge ceases to exist because you're able to deal with it. So we recognize that sleeping isn't just because I'm tired. Sleeping is actually an important thing. We have to start a new day. It allows us to begin again, which is the purpose of saying Modani. Thank you, God, for restoring my soul. Now I can start my day again. It's a very important thing. In fact, the next blessing that we say in the morning, Modani, is not really a blessing, but the blessing that we say in text number 7, page 163, it is customary to recite the blessing of Asher Yatzar each morning. Because at the start of each day, we are like freshly created beings. It is therefore appropriate to praise God daily for having created humans with his wisdom. So we see that the idea is to be able to wake up refreshed. And when we go to sleep, we take an account before we go to sleep what happened during the day. In fact, there's certain meditations that we do before we go to sleep. What happened today? How can I change it? How good was the day? How meaningful the day? Did I accomplish what I need to accomplish? And the idea of going to sleep is now, I'll hit the pause button. I'm really upset at this and this person, but now I can forgive them. In fact, there's a prayer. The opening prayer of the bedtime Shema is to forgive, to let go, so that tomorrow morning I can wake up as a different person. But that's all about the body and the mind. That's the physical, mundane part of our lives. There's something even more than that. Not only, which is already a good thing, but not only is waking up, is going to sleep a time to press pause, to take stock, and to let go of the toxicity of the day, but it's also something more than that. And that the soul itself is able to go back to spiritual heights. The soul itself benefits from going to sleep. So going to sleep is not just something that you do because you want to have a better day. Okay, on a simple level, it's because I'm tired. If you become a little bit more mindful, it's because you want to have a better day tomorrow, renewed energy tomorrow. But that's all on a physical level. On a spiritual level, It's that the soul itself is rejuvenated. And that's very powerful. The soul itself goes back to spiritual heights. But it's important that you actually meditate this. In order to accomplish and to make our sleep a spiritual endeavor, a spiritual activity, we actually need to be mindful of it. And when we're mindful of it before we go to sleep, I'm going to sleep now, not only so that I should rest up and start from fresh tomorrow, but that my soul can reboost and get more energy, we actually then, the sleep is actually a benefit not only to our body, but also to our soul. But it only comes through meditation. Again, like I said before, when we do a mitzvah, we don't need any meditation to be able to accomplish that spiritual energy. But when we do a physical act, like going to sleep, if you're going to sleep, you need to actually think about it. You actually have to meditate. It's an interesting story about, I think the Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Rebbe, he said that every activity of Shabbos has to be holy. Shabbos is a holy day. So you eat, everything is holy. Every activity has to be holy. You walk, it's holy. It's every holy. So someone asked, how do I make sleeping? Oh, and he says you have to do it with intent. You have to be mindful of every moment is holy. So how do I make sleeping holy if I'm sleeping and I'm not aware when I'm sleeping? How does that become a holy act? So in order to transform and make sleeping a holy act, a holy activity, what do I have to do? I have to meditate before I go to sleep. And before I go to sleep, I think this sleep is for Shabbos. This sleep is for holiness. That itself creates the holiness. So meditation, we see, is not only a benefit for now, that now I become calmer, but it actually has spiritual benefits. This is a very powerful concept. That when I meditate right now, in 5 minutes when I'm not meditating, it will still be affected spiritually. There'll be an effect from my meditation right now. It's a very powerful thought. So meditation turns sleep into a divine act. So we really touch very briefly on sleep. Let's go through our meditation from Rabbi Dr. Wolf, Dr. Label Wolf. Okay. I hope he's not going to tell us to go to sleep.
Such a mystery, falling asleep. That absolutely beautiful transition as you move from consciousness into some state of subconsciousness. And what you're doing is allowing yourself to move upwards, wander your soul in higher realms where it is energized for the next morning. Gently close your eyes. And just become aware of waves rolling in from the sea. Observe one wave as it finally lands on the shoreline, losing its form, its last gasp, with its wetness extending, and then the excess gently rolling back into the sea. The cycle of a wave, the cycle of life. Are you aware of the moment of falling asleep? when the wave loses its form and spreads on the shoreline? Do you prepare yourself for the journey of your soul at night, when the soul rises to higher realms, enjoying a tutorial to further enlighten it, give it peace and rest, to become refreshed by morning time? Do you have complete trust in your sleep state? Do you willingly allow your soul to travel on high? That state of trust, bitachon, is so necessary for a good night's sleep. Biyodoi afkid ruchi. I deposit my soul in God's hands. The soul has been given to me by the manufacturer with a warranty, and that warranty includes nightly gain, improvement, refreshment. And that's why I sleep. Prepare yourself before you go to sleep to have a state of confidence that the journey will allow you to be a better you next morning. Say the Shema before you go to sleep to create that sense of absolute confidence as you deposit your soul on high. By doing so, the depth of your sleep allows the soul's return to be one that brings you strength and confidence the next morning. Prepare for a good sleep. Be confident in elevating your soul, and allow the next day to be a day of further growth and the soul's pathway through the body to reach out and make the world a much better place.
Okay. So we now have to, we have the last step of our journey for tonight. Short and sweet, but it's the thing that we spend the most time on every day. And that is our work or responsibilities that we have. How can we transform work or responsibilities into a meaningful act? So the first step is to ask ourselves, why do I work? Right? Why do I work? Why do I do my responsibilities? Do I do it simply because I need to work? Because I need money to survive? Or the real reason why I work, perhaps, is as an act of love. Because if you really think about it, why do you work? To have money, to support your family, to support yourself, to give charity, to do things which are good. Which means all your work and responsibilities, whatever you're doing, ultimately is actually could be seen as an act of love. So that's being mindful of why do I work? Step number one, I go to work. It's not because I have to work, because I have to bring back a paycheck. It's because I need to accomplish something, because I care about this world. I care about others. So if I'm mindful of my activities, if I'm getting on the phone with someone because they need help, there's an act of love. So the endeavors that I do throughout the day, my work, even if I'm a builder, there is an end result of the love and the effect that it's going to have, the benefit to someone else. And that is an act of love. So that's on a very basic level. But then it comes the question, before we ask the question is what happens if I win the lottery, and what happens if they make a pill that is able to keep me up? So we see that it's not good, because I have to sleep, because there's a benefit to sleeping. It's not about just being tired and therefore having to sleep. There's something much deeper about it. Likewise, if I won the lottery, what would happen then? Would I say, okay, now I don't need to work? So if I look at text number 10 on page 166, it's interesting that working is actually a very Jewish endeavor. Work is precious, the Medrash tells us. All the prophets made a point of performing labor. Jacob requested, let me go back to tending and guarding your sheep. Moses was described as a shepherd. Moses was a shepherd. Exodus. Regarding David, it is stated, God took David from the sheep pen. The prophet Amos declared, I am a cattle herder and an inspector of sycamores, but God took me from following the flock. Work is precious. God only rested his spirit upon Elisha, the son of Shaphat, while he was busy at work. As it is stated, Elijah went from there and found Elisha, the son of Shaphat, as he was plowing. What did Elijah tell him? God, go back to work. What did I do to you? Meaning, I did not intend to interrupt your work. The whole idea of work is actually something that we see even in the Ten Commandments. As it says, let's have a look in Avot de Rabbi Natan, text number 11, page 167. Love work, do not despise it. Just as God gave us the Torah along with the divine covenant regarding its observance, so did God give us a covenant regarding our mundane work. As the Torah states, 6 days you shall work and perform all your labor, and the 7th day is a Shabbat to God. So working is essentially a mitzvah. But why is it so important? Why is it so important? So it satisfies a basic human need. We want to do something. We want to feel accomplished. We want to also have our own success. That's part of what's built within us, that we want to work. We want to do something. We want to accomplish something. There are few people who retire when they're young and don't do anything and just sit and vacate all day. Most people want to do something even when they retire. They want to accomplish something. They want to do things that are meaningful. They want to be successful. So that's a step one of being mindful of work, that there's a purpose to work. There's love involved in work. There's success in work. There's accomplishing something in work. That's a very mundane, physical mindfulness of work. But of course, we have the Kabbalistic, deeper idea of work. And that work is the purpose of creation. Let's have a look at text number 13. We're on page 168. This is very, very interesting. Amar Rava, I've used this in some of my high holiday speeches, and you'll see why. Rava taught, when we depart this world and must face heaven's judgment, each of us is asked, did you conduct business faithfully? Did you designate time for Torah study? Did you engage in procreation? Did you long for the final redemption? Did you engage in the dialectics, of Torah wisdom, or attempt to extract a fresh concept from an existing one? But what's the first thing they ask? Did you conduct business faithfully? What does that mean? So here we come into the Kabbalah of work. The Kabbalah of work says the Rebbe, based on this text, based on this Talmudic text, the Rebbe says, and let's look in text number 14, very interesting. When it says, the first thing, did you conduct business faithfully, the Rebbe said it doesn't just mean did you conduct business faithfully, but did you infuse faith, your faith within your business? Did you express your faith in business? The way the Talmud phrases heaven's inquiry, did you conduct business faithfully, allows for an alternative understanding. Not only does it include an inquiry regarding our honesty and integrity, faithfulness, but also about our spiritual approach, full of faith. Was your mundane and material work saturated with faith of God? So how do we understand this? So infusing faith in all of our activities is not the same for every single person, because it's all about, well, it could be the nature of the work that we're doing and the responsibility. It could also be changed on the way we express our faith. But the idea is like this. If we have faith in God and we meditate on that faith, and we really feel that faith, we're actually going to express it all the time. I had a very scary moment. One of my most scary moments in my life was driving from Buffalo to New York in the snow, not with a four-wheel drive, and having a complete spin out with the entire family in the car. And all I could see is the side of the road, and the car has no control, and I'm just heading that direction. And it was that moment, what do I call out? Hashem, Rebbe, Shema Yisrael, right?
Yeah.
Please, Hashem, Rebbe, save me. That was what came out of my mouth. I don't remember the exact words I said, but that was the gist of it. If we are filled with faith, and we can meditate on faith, and fill our life with faith, it will express itself in the work that we do. If someone is obsessed with baseball, for example, obsessed with a certain sport, or a certain game on their phone, then without realizing it, everything they see in life, they actually try to connect to the thing that they're passionate about. In fact, if you're a teacher and you're trying to give an example, typically the examples are going to be things that you are passionate about. It's just the way it is, because those are the things that are on your mind. Your faith should be so great. You should meditate on so much that it becomes so intense, so fills you up so much that every part of your expression in business is filled with faith. And when we do that, what are we doing in essence? We're revealing God in every part of our work, because we're actually seeing godliness everywhere. We're seeing that whatever we do is an expression of godliness, because when I'm working, the activities that I'm doing is godly activities. There's godliness everywhere. Everything I'm here helping God do tikkun olam, right? Fixing the world, revealing godliness. So if I'm focused on it, and I really have faith, that faith will express itself in the work that I do. To the point that every moment that something goes well, I say, thank God. When things aren't going so well, I say, God, please help. It becomes natural. And that's what it means. So, of course, it means a simple thing that God is going to ask, were you faithful in your business? Were you honest? Did you have integrity? But also it means that did you express your faith in business in every part of your life? We are taught to write Baruch Hashem on every top of every paper that we write. Of course, if we're writing notes in a book, we don't have to. Usually the book has something in the front. But everything that we write on should say Baruch Hashem. We have Beis Hey on the top. In fact, when I was a child, the Rebbe taught us to write before your name in the book, Lashem Haaretz Malaya, that everything belongs, the whole world is filled with God, it belongs to God. And then you write your name. That you recognize God is everywhere, and that builds faith, and that's expressed in our work. So let's finish up with text number 15, and we will go to our last meditation, and with that we will conclude the class. And I just want to mention at the end of the class, there's a whole section on Viktor Frankl, for those who have your book, that explains how inserting meaning in our lives, which we could do through these meditations, can be the key to living a high quality life, no matter the challenge. So a lot of times we have challenges in our life. The more we create meaning, the more we create purpose, the more we create godliness in our life, the higher the quality and the easier it is to deal with challenges. Problem is, sometimes we leave this till we have a challenge and then we try to meditate. But if we meditate before, we can see things differently. And in fact, it's something that I see very much from the rabbis that I've heard speaking over the last couple of days from Ukraine, even on the buses, from those of them who had to evacuate. The way they talk, crying in pain, but you could hear the way they talk with their faith, that if they didn't meditate on these ideas and live it until now, they would not be able to accomplish what they're doing, helping those and being able to live with that that spirit that they have, which is beyond anything I can imagine, and it's just really something that's true inspiration. So let's read text number 15 and go to our last meditation, and with that we'll conclude the class. The entire purpose of creation is to create a home for God within this material world, a realm of existence that sits at the bottom of all creation, beyond which there is no lower dimension of existence. For that reason, our primary work and the overwhelming majority of our pursuits are not in sacred matters per se, which means we're not sitting studying Torah all day and praying all day and doing mitzvot all day. God didn't ask us to do that. Most of the time, we're working. 6 days you should work, 7th day you should rest. For that would be similar to the spiritual service of a soul in heaven that has yet to descend to the earth, or that has already departed from earth. Rather, our primary engagement is to engage with mundane and material entities. As the Torah instructs us, 6 years you shall sow your field, indicating that we should introduce holiness and divinity even to the soil of a field, the lowest dimension of existence, thereby creating a home for God in the lowest of realms. So our job is to bring godliness in every part of our world. And when I'm digging, if I'm a mechanic and I'm fixing a car, and I think about my faith, and I think about I'm making a difference in this world, I'm actually revealing the godliness through my work. And that's a wonderful way, a different way of thinking and working and motivating ourselves. And with that, we'll go through our last meditation and conclude our class. And do all the slides. So I'll just get there.
Why do you go to work every day? Whether that work be in an office or a home office or housework. Why do you do this? Is it to save money for the vacation at the end of the year? Or is it to give yourself and your family security for survival? Or do you do it to help self-realize, fulfillment, higher purpose? Since such a significant part of your life is at work, it's important to imbue it with some sense of importance, which it is. Gently close your eyes and picture yourself walking along a gentle sloping path upwards a hillside. And as you move upwards, seeing the scenery around you, it feels so pleasant, so free, so good. Is that the feeling you have when you go to work? And if not, why not? Work seems to repeat the same mechanics. But think about it. You're an artist at work. The artist has the same mechanics, the same paintbrush, the equivalent canvas every single time, and yet each opportunity is a new work of art. Your work has to be imbued with purpose, mission, destiny. When you speak with your colleagues, you can change their lives. Speaking with confidence, speaking positively, very much affects the lives of those around you. With those words, you are an artist with a paintbrush. The more you smile at work, even without speaking, lifts the spirits of those around you. You affect them profoundly. The way you conduct yourself, personal excellence, self-mastery, gives those around you a sense of pride in the same work. The mechanics may be the same, but the mechanics are only the means of you to express your true artistry. Allow your work to be clay in the hands of a sculptor, changing your attitude, giving your work a sense of purpose, meaning, changes the world and certainly changes the lives of those around you. And this will reflect in you. You will see how your own life becomes changed, positive, uplifted, happy through your work. Work is important. It occupies so much of your day. Allow yourself to be the artist in the studio in context of your work, and that way allow the world to be a beautiful garden that everyone can walk in with admiration. Gently focus again on your breath, breathing in through the nose and out through the nose, feeling the coolness of the air as it enters and the warmth of the air as it exits. Begin moving your fingers and your toes in the room where you are. Move your fingers, move your toes. Become aware of where you are now, and gently begin opening your eyes, coming all the way back into the here and now.
So I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. Interestingly, over the last 5 weeks, tonight included, we haven't really touched upon any meditations related to spiritual activities. We really focused on the mundane, regular life. So next week, we'll get into a little bit more of the spiritual energies and meditations related to spiritual things. So I want to, I hope everybody enjoyed the class tonight. Enjoyed it so much that I only, in the meditation, I looked to see what time it is, and I see that we went over. So I want to thank everybody for your time, and to, after last week's class, recognizing how every moment is so important. We have to realize that every moment needs to be used properly and valuable. Value our time, value the time of others around us as well. So I really appreciate everybody joining the class, being part of this journey, because when I teach, and I always like to say this, when I teach, I don't only give over material, but I also try to incorporate it in my own life. And if I'm able to give a class like this, it's very meaningful. So thank you very much, everyone.